This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 12th day of September 2010. And now for the real news. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals tossed out a lawsuit against a Boeing subsidiary accused of helping to transport CIA torture detainees this week, citing the Obama Justice Department's argument that the case could imperil national security. The Obama argument relies on the state secret privilege, a 1953 Supreme Court ruling allowing judges to dismiss national security cases. The state secret privilege was rarely used until the Bush administration used it to gag FBI whistleblower Sibel Edmonds. Since then, the Obama administration has gone on to argue for the state secret privilege even more often and more strenuously than Bush.
After 8 years of Bush secrecy and an estimated 20-plus court claims of state secrets privilege with which to hide facts from the American people tonight, the new Attorney General says he has been reviewing those claims and after looking at a couple expects to reverse one of them. Is that just one or one already? Our fourth story tonight, a follow-up to last night's report on Obama's defense and expansion of the Bush doctrine of presidential supremacy over courts and the people when it comes to issues of or allegedly of national security. The current issue, the case of Jewel v. the National Security Agency, former President Bush, former Attorney General Gonzales, other officers of the Bush administration, for the illegal wiretapping as discussed on this NewsHour by whistleblower Mark Klein of Americans for the Government by AT&T using secret facilities at its Folsom Street, San Francisco location and others. As we said last night, the Obama administration, taking its first crack at the case Friday night, not only defended the Bush claim of state secrets, seeking to dismiss the case entirely, but added a stunning claim that no one can ever sue the U.S. government over secret wiretaps, even if the wiretaps are illegal. The Attorney General, Mr. Holder, telling CBS News tonight he is, quote, likely to reverse one unspecified Bush claim of state secrets, but that in the other three claims they have reviewed so far, Mr. Bush was correct.
The latest invocation of state secret privilege to throw out a case related to the illegal CIA torture program comes as no surprise to long-term critics of the Obama administration. In fact, the Obama administration has come repeatedly under attack by its most ardent supporters for repeatedly going even further than the Bush administration in destroying what remains of Americans' constitutional rights. Obama has come under swift fire for the administration's stance on pre-crime and prolonged detentions.
President Obama today proposed something new, something called prolonged detention. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Prolonged detention. Did you ever see the movie Minority Report? It was based on a Philip K. Dick short story. Came out in 2002. It starred Tom Cruise, remember? He played a police officer in something called the Department of Pre-Crime. Pre-crime is where people are arrested and incarcerated to prevent crimes that they have not yet committed.
Mr. Marks, by mandate of the District of Columbia Pre-Crime Division, I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks and Donald Dubin. Take place today, April 22nd, at 0800 hours 4 minutes.
No, I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything, but you're gonna. Future murder. Creepy, right? Putting somebody in jail not for what they've done, but for what you're very sure they're going to do?
There may be a number of people who cannot be prosecuted for past crimes. In some cases because evidence may be tainted, but who nonetheless pose a threat to the security of the United States.
We're not prosecuting them for past crimes, but we need to keep them in prison because of our expectation of their future crimes.
Obama's foreign policy has been compared unfavorably to Bush's, and on the domestic front, civil libertarians are disgusted at the continuation of the Patriot Act.
When the American people elected President Obama, the country was promised change. Yet there is very little difference between President Obama and President Bush. Take a listen. Then Senator Obama and practically every single Democrat relentlessly criticized President Bush and his administration for engaging in an illegal. Now fast forward to today and ask yourself, how has the U.S. foreign policy changed? The truth is, it hasn't. We are still entrenched in Iraq. We are fighting two other non-declared wars in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. There is a frightening level of saber rattling between this administration, the Obama administration, and the government of Iran. They are actively pursuing al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and in Yemen. And President Obama, of all things, has extended the Patriot Act, allowing the U.S. government to continue to spy on us and allowing its agents to write their own search warrants in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. There has been no change.
Obama has been called out on Bagram, aka Obama's Guantanamo.
As a parent, I can also imagine the terror I'd feel if one of my family members were rounded up in the middle of the night and sent to Guantanamo Bay without even getting one chance to ask why we were being held and being able to prove my innocence.
That was then Senator Barack Obama in 2006 speaking against the Military Commission Act, which denied habeas corpus to detainees at Guantanamo. The Supreme Court eventually ruled in 2008 that Guantanamo detainees did have a right to habeas. They could challenge their imprisonment in federal court. After that ruling, the Bush administration decided that instead of bringing detainees to Guantanamo, they'd take them somewhere else, another location outside the jurisdiction of a court, Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. Detainees found themselves in the same legal black hole, but a different location. Today, there are between 600 to 800, quote, unlawful enemy combatants held indefinitely at Bagram, and President Obama is in favor of it. President Obama is on the exact opposite side of the argument that Senator Obama was in 2006. The Obama administration has continued the Bush policy. When 3 detainees currently imprisoned in Bagram challenged their status, the administration argued against them. The White House lost that argument in front of a conservative judge who ruled the detainees did in fact have a right to habeas. So the Obama administration appealed that decision. And today, President Obama scored a victory to keep those detainees locked up indefinitely without even getting one chance to prove their innocence in court.
Within days of taking office, Obama was called out for breaking promises about lobbyists in his administration.
We are cutting through the bull tonight, and I want you to hear something Barack Obama said just about a year ago.
I'm in this race to tell the lobbyists in Washington that their days of setting the agenda are over. They have not funded my campaign. They will not work in my White House.
Just this weekend, the New York Times published a list of names, a rather long list of names of people who are working on Obama's transition team or who have accepted jobs in his White House, who are either former lobbyists or who have close ties to lobbyists.
Since then, he has appointed lobbyists to dozens of top positions in his administration. Yet despite all of these broken promises and outright lies, Obama supporters still say that Obama is somehow different than and somehow better than Bush. What is never mentioned is that neither Bush nor Obama run anything whatsoever and are mere puppet figureheads for the ruling elite who own the privately owned central banks that print the money out of nothing and then lend that funny money to the government at interest. On a related note, the government has also won a decision by the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that upholds the government's right to obtain personal information on you without a warrant from your cell phone company. In a decision that has left many attorneys perplexed, the court argued that such an action, a direct violation of Fourth Amendment freedom from warrantless searches, does not violate the Fourth Amendment.
The DOJ defends warrantless device tracking in a novel piracy case. The Obama administration has told an appeals court that the police should be able to learn the locations of mobile devices without a search warrant. There's no constitutional bar to acquiring routine business records held by a communication service provider, they say. There's a CNET story. What's this all about?
Yeah, so essentially they want to make it easy to track down anybody they want without having to go through the courts, which, yeah, great for search and rescue, right? You're looking for somebody who's lost in the wilderness, but that's not what this is for. You're looking for somebody who's lost in the wilderness, you have to go get a damn search warrant, and it takes forever, and you risk their lives. With this, the government says, oh, but when we're interested, we want to be able to skip the warrant and just look at the GPS information. It's all cattywampus. It's backwards.
Yeah, this is a really important issue because if the Obama administration gets what they want, we all have little beacon devices sitting in our pockets that the government can tap. They don't have to get a warrant. The Fourth Amendment is irrelevant. They can track where you were on a given date without ever having to prove to a court of law that I'm suspected of doing some kind of wrongdoing. And this is a really...
The appeals court upholding of the government right to access your cell phone records without a warrant comes on the heel of a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision that says that it is perfectly okay for agents of the state to sneak onto your driveway in the middle of the night, plant a GPS device on your vehicle, and track your every movement.
As we turn now to our next story, a federal court in California has issued a ruling that's raising widespread alarm among advocates for civil liberties. Earlier this month, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit said law enforcement agents can sneak onto a person's property, plant a GPS device on their vehicle, and track their every movements. The ruling came in the case of Juan Pineda Moreno, an Oregon resident who was suspected of growing marijuana. In 2007, drug enforcement agents snuck onto Pineda Moreno's property in the middle of the night and planted a GPS device on the bottom of his Jeep. Pineda Moreno ended up pleading guilty to the marijuana charges, but has challenged the government's evidence obtained through GPS. But the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has now twice rejected his case. In a dissent, Chief Judge Alex Kozinski accused the majority of, quote, cultural elitism for issuing a ruling he said would only affect lower-income Americans. Kozinski says anyone who can afford to surround their home with security gates, fences, and booths would effectively be exempt. The court's ruling means the spying is legal in California and 8 other Western states.
No word yet on why the docile American population has not risen up en masse over these flagrant violations of constitutional principles, with the declaration saying, quote, "As established in 1776, our fundamental human rights are inviolable, inalienable, and unassailable, and have never been granted by any government or judge, and thus can never be taken by any politician or judge under any pretense whatsoever," end quote. Finally this week, some 9/11 truth activists were able to insert the only sane message all weekend in the midst of an otherwise ridiculous and distractionary fight over mosques and Korans.
A lot of times we were asked, what would it take to call this thing off? We have thought it over many times. We felt very convinced that we should do this. We thought about what would have to happen for us to call our event off. As we prayed about that, in the past we did have one idea. Did this idea we put out in prayer to God, that if He would want us to call this off, if we have accomplished our goal, then our thought was...
Now stay tuned to CorbettReport.com for episode 145 of the Corbett Report podcast, You Are Being Gamed, where we examine the virtual Skinner boxes that are being created to condition your behaviors for every aspect of your life.